What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel, and welcome back to How Do I Want to Do This? This is our series where we take a look at all playable options available to players in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, then we rank them on a scale of 1 to 10 and either build them or fix them depending on how they rank. Now today we begin our dive into the subclass list, the long list of monks in Dungeons & Dragons, and we get to start off with the Astral Self Monk from Tasha's. This is a very interesting monk and one of my favorites actually, so let's see how it works out mechanically. Before we do that, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already. As you can see, most people who watch the channel are not subscribed, so please help us to reach our goal of 5,000 by the end of this year. I believe we can do it, but I really need your help. Our viewership has taken a bit of a hit since the OGL scandal and all that good stuff, which I will be talking about a little bit later this week, despite the news changing once again as I produce a video for the channel. Yeah, the news cycle has been absolutely insane on this, but I really need your help so that we don't lose traction, so that we don't stop getting new people to the channel. So please, again, this is a great time to go ahead and share the video with your friends, and of course click the bell so you're notified when new videos are uploaded. So the Astral Self Monk is one of my favorite monks. It is an absolutely amazingly cool subclass in its flavor. So with this, you are looking to fix up your body in a way, right? And you don't even necessarily focus on your physical body for your power. It comes from this astral body that is, of course, yours as well. And so this leads to some really cool flavor. To me, this really just screams kind of a Doctor Strange situation in which someone has this really bad injury and goes to be a monk in order to get something fixed, right? And somehow discovers this ability, right? And allows you to either use your own body to channel this ability, or these arms and the visage and all this stuff can actually just go around you. So either way, this is really cool. Now, is it good on a mechanical side? Let's find out. Starting off at level 3, we get Arms of the Astral Self, and this actually gives us several different things that relate all to us becoming our full self eventually. So with this, whenever we take a bonus action and spend 1 key point, we can summon just the arms of our astral self. Of course, eventually we are going to be able to summon pretty much the entire astral self, but for now it's just the arms. When we do this, we can choose creatures within 10 feet of us, and they have to make a dexterity saving throw, or they will take force damage equal to 2 rolls of our martial arts die. Then for 10 minutes, we have those arms that either hover near our shoulders or surround our own arms, either way, and while they are out, we get the following benefits. Number 1, we can use our wisdom modifier in place of our strength modifier when making strength checks and strength saving throws. We can use these to make unarmed strikes. When we make an unarmed strike with those arms on our turn, our reach is extended by 5 feet. And finally, the unarmed strikes that we make with these use our wisdom modifier rather than strength or dexterity, and instead of bludgeoning damage, it deals force damage. So there's a lot to unpack about this, right? That's a lot of things to all be just kind of crammed into one thing. So I know that some people don't like the fact that it takes a bonus action, that it's not free. At the same time, though, you get the explosion of force damage, which is basically the damage you would have dealt minus your dexterity or wisdom modifier in this case. So it's not too bad, to be honest. So that kind of is a wash in my opinion. But we get it for 10 minutes, which is pretty good. I mean, that's a pretty long time, so that works out. And using wisdom modifier for strength saving throws and strength checks is pretty good, actually. We already have proficiency just by being a monk, unless you started somewhere else in your multi-class, but we would have it just regularly, and so that's pretty good as far as strength saves, so we're doing all right so far. We can make unarmed strikes with this, and we get an extended range. That's really nice, actually, because, you know, we don't always want to be right up in the face of our enemy, and if we can make unarmed strikes, especially, you know, stunning strikes and that sort of thing, and we don't have to be right there next to them and worry about using our bonus action to disengage, that's pretty helpful. So we're looking okay so far. However, the only thing about this that is a little bit of a downside is the fact that it has to be on our turn. That does mean that Sentinel will not activate with this. We do still have to be within 5 feet for Sentinel to activate unless we have some other way to extend our range, maybe a racial option that would work well with this. And finally, being able to use our wisdom modifier for strength and dex is really actually quite good. This means that we can focus down on our wisdom primarily, and then we've got a really good stunning strike saving throw going on. So that's really nice. I'm really happy that we can do that. However, there are a couple of other things that are a bit problematic here. Number one, we're still going to want to have a good dex score, because that's still our armor class, that's still our initiative, that's still a lot of things that all get wrapped up into the dexterity modifier. The other thing is that this is force damage, meaning no crusher. So force damage is really good, don't get me wrong. There's hardly anything that resists it. But you also cannot use that feat with this, and so that doesn't help either. Now, obviously, you could use a weapon still if you wanted to. You could use your regular unarmed strikes if you chose to, but at that point, what's the point, right? I think that the whole point of this is that you are not wielding a weapon, that you are the weapon, and this would allow you to get away with that. Overall, this is pretty good. Like, there are a couple of downsides, and so it's not going to be perfect, but overall, it is pretty good for only 1 key point and a bonus action. And because we get that explosion, I don't feel as bad about missing out on our flurry of blows. So that's not too bad. Overall, I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. As far as features go, this is pretty good. And I actually really would like to have this. Next up, we get Visage of the Astral Self at level 6. And so what we can do with this is when we activate our arms of the Astral Self, which we got last time, we can spend an additional key point to gain the Visage, which goes over our head. It is some kind of helmet that we can choose how it looks. And so for 10 minutes, of course, we will now have both of these. While this is active, you will get 3 additional features. Number 1, you get Astral Sight, and this allows you to see up to 120 feet in darkness, both magical and non-magical. That's pretty good. We also get Wisdom of the Spirit, so we have advantage on insight and intimidation checks while this is active. And finally, we can direct words to a creature of our choice that we can see within 60 feet of us, making it so that only that creature can hear us. Or we can amplify our voice so that anything within 600 feet can hear us. All right, let's break this down just a little bit here. So we actually are filling pretty much all 3 pillars of D&D with this feature. And let's go through it. Number 1, for combat, we've got magical and non-magical dark vision. That's pretty awesome, right? So if you get the ability to cast a darkness spell, you've got advantage on everything because now you can see it. And so that feels really good. That's pretty cool. As far as the social part of this, we get advantage on insight and intimidation checks. Although we're probably going to be a lot better at insight than we will be at intimidation, but you know, it is what it is. And finally, for the exploration part, the infiltration, probably more effectively, we can just speak to someone 60 feet away from us and no one else can hear it. That's pretty cool. The amplifying to 600 feet away is probably just kind of a one-off or two-off kind of a joke thing, or just to get a distraction off, but it's not going to be nearly as impactful as the other 2. As far as the other 2 go, I don't know if I want to spend key points just to have advantage on insight checks. I don't know if that's worth it, really. The magical darkness is pretty good, but you probably need to build around it specifically, or make sure that you have a race that doesn't have dark vision so that you can actually get your full benefit out of this. I don't know, this one just seems a little bit underwhelming, despite the fact that it's kind of pretty diverse in what it gives you. Overall, I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. It's pretty good. It definitely could be a lot better, and I don't think you get as much for your key point as you do with the arms. At level 11, we get Body of the Astral Self, and now it looks like we're wearing a spooky space-themed suit of armor, which is pretty cool, as well as our arms and our helmet. Now, one thing about this is that you do have to have the arms and the visage out in order for this to work. Now, it doesn't cost key in order to do this, so that's cool, but you do have to have spent the 2 key that you had to spend just to get the visage out. So there's no just getting the arms and then this comes out. You do have to have all 3 active at one time, but at least it doesn't cost you an extra key. We're still at 2. With this, we get 2 benefits. When we take any kind of elemental damage, at least specifically acid, cold, fire, force, lightning, or thunder, then we can use our reaction to deflect it. And when we do so, that damage is reduced by 1d10 plus our wisdom modifier. On top of that, we also get empowered arms. So on each of our turns, whenever we hit a target with the arms, we can deal extra damage equal to our martial arts die. So this one is a little bit better than what we just talked about, but there's still a couple of things that I would have loved to have been a little bit better. As far as the deflect energy goes, it does use up our reaction. So in that way, it's kind of just a worse absorb elements. I really wish that they would have basically made this absorb elements so that you could reduce incoming damage and then re-deal out that same type of damage. I don't know, that would have been a lot cooler if you could like absorb that into your arms, charge that up, and then fire it back at somebody. That would have been really neat, but that's not what happened here. And I still would think it would have been a little bit better to do this just for free, and you just get a resistance or 2 per day, and so whenever you finish a long rest you can pick one of these and you have resistance to it, and that I think that would have been a better way to do it personally, but whatever. And then the empowered arms, we're just essentially doubling our damage almost, so we get to double the dice at least, and so if we crit we're now doing 4 dice worth instead of just 2, so that's pretty cool as well. Is this so impactful that I think it's a perfect thing? Absolutely not, but it is pretty good. I do think that this is worth an 8 out of 10. Again, like I said, it's cool. We get to deal a little bit of extra damage and we get to reduce some damage that we are taking of some pretty common ones are in there. Of course, fire is in there. You've also got lightning and thunder. Those are somewhat common. So, I mean, this will definitely come up and I appreciate it. I just wish it didn't take up our reaction as well. Finally, at level 17, we get Awakened Astral Self, and we now are complete, although it took 17 levels, but that's okay. So at the cost of 5 key, we can summon everything, the arms, visage, and body, and awaken it for, again, 10 minutes. This, of course, lasts until we are incapacitated or die if we do not survive that 10 minutes. We get 2 benefits now from having all of that active at once. We get a +2 bonus to our armor class, and whenever we use the extra attack feature to attack twice, we can now make 3 attacks as long as all of them are made with our astral arms. So this was almost really good. It was so close. But I have one gripe with this. So we get +2 to armor class. I'm never going to complain about that. Hopefully you've gotten your dexterity up pretty high by this point and your wisdom up pretty high by this point. So hopefully you've got at least a decent armor class, and then this should help you out a little bit more, which is nice. But as far as the extra attack feature goes, of course I want to do that, but that does mean that if you have gotten any kind of magical quarterstaff or some other type of monk weapon, you can't use that in order to use this feature. It has to be with the arms. Of course, this would be something to discuss with your DM just to make sure that if you're going to get some really cool magic items, especially by this level, then hopefully they are focused on making your unarmed strikes better, and hopefully they will also work with your astral self stuff, but that's something to talk to your DM about. But as far as that goes, we are limited to only unarmed strikes. We cannot use a weapon of any kind in order for this to work. It's a small gripe, and that's why I'm not going to take off a ton of points for this. I still think it's very good just because we're dealing extra damage, but if you wanted to use some other type of weapon, sorry, it's not compatible. For this though, I do think that it's worth a 9 out of 10. As far as this goes, I mean, getting an extra attack is always going to be good. That's another chance to land stunning strike, especially if you've got a really good wisdom score, which should have been maxed out a long time ago. And now we're also harder to hit, so what's not to love here? So what do we think about the Astral Self Monk? It's actually pretty cool. I really, really like this subclass, both for the flavor and it's actually very mechanically satisfying. Of course, it does have its flaws, and so it's far from perfect, and you'll see that as a very common theme when it comes to monks and monk subclasses. But remember, we are ranking subclasses versus each other, not versus subclasses that are in other classes, because that would be a bloodbath for the monk. But as far as looking at other subclasses that I haven't covered just yet, this one does rank pretty highly actually, and I'm really happy with how they did this. I would love to tweak a few things just to make it a little bit better, but it's still going to get an 8 out of 10 overall. That's very respectable for the monk. It's very, very powerful, and it's really, really fun. Getting extra attacks that late is cool, and that's why I couldn't bump it up to a 9, just because that doesn't come until so late. But having the arms, just the arms, is really, really nice. And honestly, I wouldn't take the visage every time. The visage is cool, but the arms are way more helpful for you, and you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck there. Like I said, you don't have to necessarily split your stats up all that bad, or feel like you have to be in a race to get both of them up at the same time. What I would do for something like this is go with wisdom until it's maxed out, then jump back to dexterity. And I think it's just going to work out that way a lot better. You've got dexterity saving throw proficiency, so you've got that already helping you out, which is nice. And of course, your strength stuff, you are using your wisdom instead. So you're having really good saving throws on that side, and you're just going to be buffing those up as you go with ASIs. There aren't a ton of feats that this subclass really wants. Like I said, Crusher is an absolute no-go with this, and Sentinel, you would still have to use stuff on your turn in order for Sentinel to activate, which is bad. Or you would have to use your actual arms if somebody is within 5 feet of you and goes to run away and that sort of thing. So yeah, that's a little bit tough. But overall, it's still a really nice subclass, and I really like it. Of course, later this week, we are going to be covering this as we build one together, and I am very excited to build my first monk here on the channel, and I think you're going to like it. This is actually a subclass that I've been rolling around in my head for a while, and so I actually already had this build kind of sketched out a little bit, and so now I get to actually put it out there for everybody to see, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure that you are subscribed so you don't miss that. Of course, like always, we will see you later this week. Stay safe out there, stay healthy. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.